Guys, Friar Friday visit with Bryan Hoeing. Enjoy, because we certainly enjoyed chatting with him. And indeed, time for our Friar Friday interview, and looking forward to this one. Bryan Hoeing, Padres, is our guest today from Cincinnati, which is, I guess, more than a stone's throw from where you played collegiately, Bryan, at Louisville. But I imagine you'll have some friends, family driving up to be part of the weekend series. You might have to hand out a ticket or two.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Batesville, Indiana, which is actually about 45 minutes or so west of Cincinnati, and then I went to Louisville, which I think is around an hour and a half. So I'm in that tri-state. I have a lot of familiarity with that tri-state area, and yeah, of course, definitely gonna be handing out some tickets this weekend. I think I got around 20 to 25, at least for me that I know of, coming each game. And then I'm from a small town, so we grew up going to Reds games all the time. Like just a lot of my memories of childhood are at the Reds games, watching those guys play in the 2000s and 2010. So this place, in a way, some kind of feels like home. So it's always been a dream of mine to come back here and play.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Bryan, being that you're from Indiana. My parents had a place in Fishers, Indiana. We used to.
Oh, no way.
My dad would literally drive in a 3-game set. He'd stay in Fishers and drive back and forth because it was a close drive. So I can relate a little bit about driving. I mean, I want to ask you a little bit about the start to your season. Obviously, you were injured throughout spring training. Was it difficult, like, just getting to the point of like, man, when am I going to be able to get back out on this field and help the guys out in some type of way? Was there frustration as that thing may have taken a little longer than you would have liked?
No doubt. Yeah, I think you nailed it. This is something new for me. I've never dealt with a shoulder injury. It's been a while since I've been injured. I've had a lot of clean years in a row. I think the most frustrating part was we kind of had our eyes set on maybe just missing the first month of the year, and then it kind of turned to 2 months, and then we were pushing almost 3 months. Not that I ever thought it was going to be a straight line getting back to being healthy, but definitely longer than what I envisioned. I think what the coaching staff and the training staff envisioned, but nonetheless, they were very communicative with me, and we were always on the same page. And the training staff helped me out a bunch. I'm happy to be back, but hopefully that's behind us now. We can finish out these last 3 months strong now.
Bryan Hoeing is with us, our Friar Friday interview from Cincinnati. And Bryan, I don't want to make you go through the injury again, but I'm just curious because fans probably don't have any idea. A shoulder injury, was this something that happened on a pitch and you went, oh no? Was this something you woke up one day and it was a little – how did you kind of arrive at this? Yeah. And then – because we know how you got out of it with a lot of hard work and the training staff. So where does it begin in that sense?
Yeah, it was like I said, it was strange. I've never dealt with this before. But honestly, it really went back to that first week of the throwing program in the offseason when I started throwing in December. After a long year, I took – like I always do, I take some time off to, let my body recover and just build back up from a long season of pitching. And for whatever reason, the first week of throwing in the off season just didn't really feel great. And then, I thought, it's just maybe just a little bit rusty. And so I kept building up. And then I was thinking, at some point this has got to go away. But I kept feeling it in my shoulder. And it got to a point where it was just like, yeah, this needs to be addressed because spring training is coming up around the corner and I'm not where I need to be. Unfortunately, I feel like I did everything I possibly could. I did everything. I rested, I lifted, I took care of my arm. And unfortunately, it's just the way it is, I guess, the way your body kind of reacts. And so it just lingered on throughout the off season. I tried to push through it, got out to spring training, and once again tried to push through it. And it was almost a point where enough's enough. Let's shut down here. Let's get this figured out because we're thinking long term instead of short term.
Bryan Hoeing joins us here, Padre reliever, and he's kind of taking us through the injury and how it came about. Bryan, take us through the part where you start to throw and you're getting closer. I would imagine after almost 3 months, you're kind of throwing, you're building up. Is there a point when you get on the mound and you're just like, man, I hope I no longer feeling what I was feeling before? Like, how long did it take before you were actually able to just throw the baseball free of thought of the injury that you had been dealing with?
Right. I think what people ask, I think that's more than anything is the mental side of it. Right. I was throwing for such a long, extended period of time where I kept feeling something in my shoulder, and then mean, that takes a toll. I'm sure you guys have dealt with it. That takes a toll on you mentally.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
it gets to a point where before you go throw, it's almost like you're expecting to feel something again. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, it just comes down to getting it healthy and then not feeling it again. And then the repetition and more reps of having a healthy shoulder, and then your mind can then freely relax and just tell yourself, okay, it's fine. Like you don't need to panic. You don't need to search for it. It's good. It's healthy. So I think when I got to that point where I was able to throw without any pain, and then day after day, throw, wake up the next day and be able to throw again, I think that was a big thing too. Is I could get through the throwing days, but how am I going to wake up the next day and respond to how the shoulder going to feel? So, like I said, it took a lot of hard work. Like I said, it was some tough days for sure. Being in Arizona, but not with the team and watching these guys play. Obviously, I want to be out there and help the team win. But we're in a good spot now.
Yeah, Padres reliever Bryan Hoeing. You did make 10 starts with Miami. Is that something still in the back of your mind, maybe getting an opportunity to do that? It seems like a lot of relief pitchers, well, most relievers at some point were starters. Nobody grows up as a high school kid as a reliever. So,
right.
Yeah, any thought of that, or are you just too busy making sure you do what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think about it much during the season, but when I do think about my future, and I think I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't want to be a starter. The Padres were to approach me, and they brought up the idea, I definitely would be interested in that. Now, with that being said, at the end of the day, whatever they need me to be, that's the role I'm going to pitch at. But I've also seen, I've seen Ting, turn into a reliever to a starter, and I know Pivetta came up. I think he had a little bit of starts into bullpen. So I've seen it, and I've seen how the way certain guys have, kind of come out of that relieving role into starters. I'm not saying it's always a successful transition, but you do see those successful stories of bullpen guys going to starters. And I think, I would like to be that one day. But like I said, at the end of the day, whatever I feel like helps the team win, which right now is definitely out of the bullpen, then that's what we're going to roll with.
Bryan Hoeing joins us here, Padre reliever. And Bryan, you talked a little bit about the starting part of it. How much has that helped you kind of be the Swiss Army knife coming out of the bullpen? You can give 2-3 innings of work. You can do the high leverage inning. How much has that been of a kind of a bonus for you as you've had that kind of starting under your belt?
Right. I think it's been huge. I think you can honestly go all the way back to my college days where I did the same thing. I was a starter for some of the year, the 3 years I pitched there, and then some of the years I was a reliever. So that kind of built that foundation of being that so-called Swiss Army knife. And at the end of the day, I typically do a good job of staying healthy. And that's also a big key, is just being able to be healthy, because obviously it's not the best thing for your arm to be bouncing back and forth between, 4 innings 1 week and then 1 inning. But if you take care of your work in the training room and the weight room, then obviously it puts you in the best position to stay healthy and pitch. And but yeah, I think that's a huge deal. It's just the experience that I've had with it. So
Bryan Hoeing, Padres bullpen's been good all year, and it's a lot better now with Bryan back. I'm gonna let you go on this one, Bryan. We appreciate the time, but I have to ask. You went to Louisville, your final year there, I believe, or maybe your first year there, I believe, was the last year for one of every Padres' favorite players, Will Smith, the catcher of the Dodgers. He's kind of drawn the ire of some folks in San Diego, but I'm sure you know him pretty well. Tell me something good about Will Smith so I can feel better about this guy.
Oh, I know. Well, don't look at his splits against me. I think he might be an 800 off me.
Oh no.
He's got my number, unfortunately. So funny enough, 2016 was my freshman year at Louisville. Will's junior year at Louisville. I was actually hurt that year. I sat out that year with Tommy John, so I actually never got to pitch him in a game. But obviously, I was still part of the team, still in the clubhouse, around him all the time, every single day. But as him being a Dodger, you might hate to hear this, but he actually is a great guy. So down to earth guy, humble dude. He's obviously is who he is, and I feel like he's never really changed. The times that I've talked to him up here, just before or after games, he's super humble, asking me how I'm doing, and I'd like to think that's just part of the Louisville culture that Coach Mack built there. But man, he's a hell of a player and a better person, I would say.
Yeah, well, he is a hell of a player, and the Padres got to find a way to slow him down, and hopefully you'll have a hand in that down the stretch.
Yep.
Bryan, thanks so much for everything. Always good catching up with you, and hope you have a great weekend there in Cincinnati and get to do some fun things in front of your family and friends.
Thanks, Bryan.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Bryan Hoeing getting it done with us.